Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today, as always, when I get a new Shin'ichi Sakamoto book is a good day. I'm very happy. This is the third volume of Dark Horse's omnibus collection of Shinichi's, one of his many masterpieces, Innocent. This is a very intense story about a family of executioners during the French Revolution. It's based in real characters, but a lot of the details of the flow of the story here are completely fantastical and made up. You can see right out the gate like the type of fantastical artwork you could be looking at here, where Shinichi is drawing what people think of when they're describing executioners. That's one of the many things I like about Shinichi's books, is he's willing to just veer off into like a whole chapter's worth of surreal imagery to get across like what someone's feeling inside of their head. And it allows him moments to go from like just having to draw a conversation or someone thinking to drawing these like super intense pictures using his imagination here. But yeah, we're dealing with characters during the French Revolution, most of them being in the royal class or people that are in the family, the Sanson family, that are executioners. Here you see one of the Louis Auguste, one of the French royalty, as a child playing and in his fantasy land, and you get another look at the kind of amazing detail dense imagery that Shinichi Sakamoto puts into his books. The coolest thing I think about the art in this book, along with the story, is that it's all about the ideals of the French Revolution. So you're having like this progressive move forward versus this regressive move to tradition. And those things are constantly colliding in the book. And then with that, you have all of the excess of the royalty that's shown so very well with all of this flowery, glittery stuff. He really is able to lean into that aesthetic from the Shoujo manga and use the environment of like France during this time of the revolution with the Palace of Versailles and all the excesses in the art and design there, to make these absolutely gorgeous images, and then balance that against the brutality of the time as well. And I'll show some other examples of that. But he's also putting that into his like main characters here. This is Charles Sanson, the main character, who's inherited the role of the executioner, but doesn't really want it. He's dreaming of a world where no one has to be executed. He's kind of the spirit of the rebellion in that sense, is that he wants this utopian world where no one wants to get hit. And then his sister Marie is on the other side of the spirit of the rebellion, where she's like a strong feminist and she's like, fuck the whole system, and she wants to see the blood flow and wants to be an executioner, but is having problems with that because she's a female and society doesn't expect it. So they're as a duo are a really good expression, I think, of like two different sides of the revolutionary spirit: the angry need for blood and the compassionate, like, I just want to see things get better, but like to do that I'm having to chop off heads and I hate it, so how do I do it more compassionately? Those two are really interesting. And so like it's not just amazing gorgeous art like this, it's really thoughtful, careful writing and storytelling and character development. And yeah, it all adds up to be a pretty astonishing thing. You can see here now, flipping from all of the beautiful flowers and fleur-de-lis and all the Rococo styling, just the absolute disgusting nature of chopping someone's head off and the executions that are carried out. And this royal character here covered in blood and, you know, feeling invigorated by the fact that he just chopped someone's head off. I think they show, yeah, this is another one of those visual metaphors where he's chopping it off and they show it snapping like a cob of corn. And this is all while they've got all their frilly clothes on and all that stuff. So balancing those two things, juxtaposing those two things together, just makes a visually powerful argument for, you know, what was going on in the world at that time. Like, these two things were living in close proximity, and, you know, this was like kind of the obvious hypocrisy, visual hypocrisy on the surface of this society. And then Shinichi's looking at that through the characters as like I said, with the main two characters, you have people who are embodying those hopes in different ways. So here you can see the design of Marie. This is why I was astonished when I first found this online in like 2016 probably, that I found scanlations of this online. I was astonished that this wasn't being published, because I feel like this character with this look, with the shaved head on the side, looks like so many of the gals that were in the art programs with me, a lot of my students and stuff. Just this very kind of like fierce punk rock character that is Marie Sanson, Charles's younger sister, who's also a badass, total badass executioner, but also just, someone who's really willing to fight this strong female character, pushing the revolution from that side. Makes a really, really compelling reading, and I would think I'm assuming this book is going to be huge with young kids, because it's really obviously beautifully drawn, politically pretty progressive, and then really, really well written, really beautiful to look at. You see there's also some exploration of the sexuality of both the brother and the sister. So here you get Charles Sanson with the kind of prince in waiting, king in waiting, the wee Auguste, and they have a kind of homosexual, I don't know if it ever gets explicit, but they have a thing together. Again, you get a sense of the absolute beautiful imagery, super amazing details all throughout this book. Shin'ichi Sakamoto obviously uses photographs for backgrounds and things like that, uses reference photos. In this series has started doing digital art rather than physical art. But there's so much in here that still looks hand-drawn on top of the photo that in most places I'm okay with the use of the digital tools, because he's realizing so many amazing compositions and amazing visual ideas on pretty much any page. I mean, I could just flip through the book and any page would have something absolutely astonishing on it. So I'm kind of cool with it, Here you get that same level of density of detail and attention to all the little folds and the frills and the doilies, but you're seeing Princess Marie Antoinette come into France from Austria here, and they're getting her dressed up and really just going overboard with that shoujo, like floating flowers and little sparkles, and making her super cute. One of the things that Shinichi Sakamoto does throughout his career, but even more so coming up, not in this volume, but in future volumes, he's really aware of like the stylistic history of manga and what different styles mean, basically, and is very willing to leverage that. So very willing to leverage like the shoujo kind of style to say something about a character, what they're going through emotionally. I think it's just really, really smart. Some really amazing drawing here on this face of Marie, her eyes, the way they just fade off into the dark. I feel like he was looking at Yolande Visser from Die Antwoord a lot with his drawings of Marie, because that very much looks like Yolande. But the drawing of the eyes is so beautiful, so stunning in there. And his detail work is absolutely insane. And then always trying new things, always trying, like here, going into this very like silhouette play style of storytelling, looking for sources of storytelling outside of manga. I feel like this is something that Western artists are more prone to do, and Shinichi Sakamoto is really willing to play with stylistic reference, historical reference, visual references, like these silhouettes here, to make a point. And I think that's really, really cool to see from a manga artist, and probably one of the best to do it that I've seen. Here's another one where we're getting some reference to culture outside of Japan, with you have Gustav Klimt's kiss very visible on here, but then taken into Shinichi Sakamoto's entirely own world with a lot of Japanese tricks to it. So a lot of the production tricks you'd be used to from manga, just some of the stylistic abstraction of clouds and things that you would see more in Asian paintings of clouds and landscapes, things like that. But this is also showing in the same way that her brother is having a romantic relationship with the prince. Marie Sanson is having a lesbian relationship with Marie Antoinette. So obviously this is not all historical fact at this point. Shinichi Sakamoto is making stuff up. But thematically, it's really interesting because, again, they're both coming at this revolution from very different ways. And at this point in the book, Charles Sanson has really taken up the role of the traditionalist. Like, he's trying to hold the tradition of the family, and Marie Antoinette's trying to break out of it. But they're both breaking out of, the social norms that they're supposed to be bound to. And then they're also both breaking the norms of royalty, and the executioners were seen as filthy and shouldn't be touching someone who's royal. They would spoil them. So breaking all kinds of taboos in there. Another really cool visual, I don't know how well it'll show on screen, but the Madame du Barry, who's the prostitute that works her way up and becomes the mistress of the king, she has a very powerful perfume that Charles Sanson finds quite charming, and so anytime she shows up, there's this strange effect going on. This is something that you could do by cutting up different tones and stuff, but probably would be pretty hard to do without a computer. So another one of those instances where Shinichi Sakamoto is using computers, but I think he's doing it to get effects that would be hard to get otherwise, but they don't look cheesy. They look like he has a unique particular vision in mind. It's not just a filter he's running on something. And so I like that. Sometimes I think he does go too far with the computer stuff, but most of the time I think he's using it really interesting. I really like this bit of writing right here, as well as the image, but he's saying, from the moment that one becomes a parent, they're committed to the role of a villain. And he's talking about that, like, no matter how good of a parent you are, you're kind of bound to screw your kid up somehow. But then also in this is talking about having to be responsible for the tradition of the family. Like, he has to raise his child in such a way that his child can handle being an executioner, and knowing that he was a soft, sensitive soul who struggled with that, it's really hurting him to have to do the same awful things to his kid, which I don't want to show in here what they're doing. But he's struggling with that, and so that's part of this tradition versus progress argument that's being had. Is in some ways he's pushing the boundaries, but in other ways he's being held back by tradition, but also wanting to get away from that, but in a different way from his sister. It makes a very good mix. Some more examples of the more floofy shoujo type of sparkly stuff here, and then also like the willingness to go into non-standard type of imagery, again having this more mechanistic thing play out here, where we've got the characters doing like a song and dance. This is like the episode in the TV show where they go and they have a musical episode. Because Shinichi Sakamoto is willing to work with the psychological sides of his characters through these strange visual metaphors, he's bought himself the room to get surreal and playful, and I really enjoy that aspect of his work. Another really interesting bit of writing here: I never imagined that by simply suppressing my ego for a few moments, I could witness the world around me enveloped in halcyon harmony. Mother, perhaps this is what it means to be an adult. Really, really like that bit of writing, that idea of like suppressing the ego. That's something that I'm constantly, philosophically and personally from an emotional level, having to relearn over and over and over. And that unity, that witnessing the world around me and being enveloped in the harmony of the moment. That's hard to achieve and maintain, but it is somehow tied to being an adult. There's some truth in that. And this is Marie Antoinette realizing that she needs to grow up and behave in a way that will lead her nation. I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. And that this particular volume, this omnibus collects 3 volumes, but the last of them seems very much focused on all the characters trying to grow up, whether it be Charles having to raise his own kid, or Marie Antoinette kind of realizing the role that she has, the responsibility she has, or Marie Sanson growing up and fighting for her place in the world. They're kind of all going through that at the same time. And Shinichi Sakamoto is using that as a literary device to kind of compare their different reactions. And it's just expertly done. Another good piece of writing here: the first flickers of dawn are upon a world where your gender, your birth, even your profession, or the color of your skin will not matter. In order to teach the children of this new world, I need your help, Marie. And this is this character who's of mixed race background. He's did I write his name down? No, I didn't write his name down, but he's an analog to a real world person, but not actually the person. But this character that's of mixed race, and in the story at least, he's coming in and wanting to open a new school, and that's his way of like having this revolution happen. And he's trying to get Marie on board with that, and she's a little bit more bloodthirsty, but is going along with it and is sucked in by his vision to some extent. It is an important character in there, but interesting that they're showing like this different side of again, another way that this revolution could be played out in the society as they're trying to figure out what it's going to be and what that will look like. And then you can see Shin'ichi Sakamoto flipping into some really amazing action sequences. This is an artist that can kind of handle and do everything, and just make some really amazing art. And then some of the color stuff, and I'll admit, like the color stuff leads too much into like the airbrushy, computer smoothed over type of thing for me. But that's fine because the majority of this is black and white art. But one of the rare times where I don't want to see a manga artist work in color, I think Shin'ichi Sakamoto is one of the most interesting and fascinating artists working in black and white right now. Someone who's making art for print very, very consciously so. And I love it. Doing amazing compositions, details to make your eyes fall out, and then a story that I think is very rich in character, and very rich in theme, and very relevant to what we're going through in terms of philosophical ideas and social ideas in the air right now. So, stunning books, definitely buy it. And I cannot wait for the next volume of this, and I cannot wait for the first volume of The Climber to come out. So you should all keep an eye out for that as well.
Back to